Hey guys, today we're talking about insider trading. So, it's pretty obvious that if you work for a company and find out that they're going to have terrible earnings, you can't go out and short that company's stock. But things can get pretty complicated pretty fast. That's what three guys living in New York City found out in 2012 when two of them ended up getting charged with insider trading based on Bill Ackman's infamous Herbalife presentation. Okay, so we're not going to be covering the full Bill Ackman versus Herbalife story here, as it literally has enough twists and turns that it was covered in a feature-length documentary called Betting on Zero. People seem to like that though, so maybe you could check it out after this if you're still interested. Suffice it to say, Bill Ackman had a theory about Herbalife.
Herbalife is a pyramid scheme. It's caused enormous harm, not just to millions of people in this country, hundreds of thousands of people in this country, millions around the world. What is our goal? Our goal is for the facts about Herbalife to be made public. And Justice Brandeis, sunshine is the best disinfectant.
And it led to some great TV moments like this one from CNBC.
So let's start with what I want to say. Ackman is a liar, okay? To begin.
For our purposes, what's important is that Bill Ackman didn't like Herbalife, and when the market found out about his theory, shares fell from $42.50 at the close on December 18th to a low of $26.06 at the close on December 24th. So, Merry Christmas to shareholders, I guess. Now, Ackman didn't prepare this whole presentation in isolation. He had a team of people working with him at his fund Pershing Square. One of those people was Marius Adamski. At some point during the production of the presentation, Adamski's roommate, Philip Chimik, noticed he was doing a lot of research on Herbalife, and so he asked him what was up, and Adamski told him about the pyramid scheme hypothesis. Chimik then relayed this information to his friend Jordan Peixoto, who lived on the same New York City block as the roommates and knew that Adamski worked at Pershing Square. Peixoto apparently saw this as his golden opportunity as he began purchasing put options. This is a strategy similar to when you short a stock in that you're betting that the value of the company will go down, but it allows for a much larger risk versus reward situation, especially if the stock is going to move a large amount in a small amount of time. And that's exactly what happened. However, there was a problem. Peixoto knew immediately that the price had moved too far and too fast. He had probably been thinking maybe he'll make $1,000 on this, but suddenly his portfolio was up $339,421. If this sounds familiar, it's almost exactly the situation the guys find themselves in the movie Office Space. And so, just like in the movie, Jordan hatched a plan to avoid going to prison, specifically
Federal colony in the ass prison.
the entirety of his plan was that he was going to call up his brokers and tell them that he wanted to let the options expire. If he did this, it would mean that he never really collected any of the money that he was going to make, and it must have made for some pretty weird phone calls. Imagine getting a call at a brokerage and having some guy tell you he definitely doesn't want to collect on the $100,000 that he just made. So, unfortunately, one of his brokers decided that they were not going to let their client sabotage themselves, and they wouldn't cancel the contract. They probably thought that Peixoto was just confused and probably would be mad later when he realized what happened. Or whatever the reason, one way or another, Peixoto was unable to shed all the profit and he ends up making $47,000. The SEC investigated a lot about the Pershing Square Herbalife affair, and among the outcomes was that on September 30th, 2014, two of those three friends were charged with insider trading. So, which two? What do you think? The SEC charged Chimik and Peixoto. The case raised some really interesting questions about what is inside information and what is an illegal insider trade. The standard for insider information is material, non-public information, meaning that it's something that could move the stock price that not everyone knows about. The Pershing Square presentation obviously moved the stock price, and despite the target of their presentation being secret to outsiders, this didn't really match what a lot of people normally would think inside information is. No one from Herbalife had told anything to anyone from Pershing Square, nor was there any sort of business relationship between the two that would give leverage to one over the other. In fact, it was the first time in history that the SEC decided a hedge fund's disclosure of its activities was inside information. To be really reductive about what was going on, the SEC basically deemed the fact that Pershing Square analysts were working on a PowerPoint presentation to be material non-public information. The more relevant thing here was who can trade on this material non-public information. The immediate response might feel like it would be, well, no one can, but if you think about it, that's silly. Pershing Square knows that Pershing Square is working on this PowerPoint about Herbalife, and obviously they can trade on it, so who can't? The basic rule is that you can't trade on material non-public information if the person who gave it to you had a duty to keep it confidential, breached that duty, and did so for some personal benefit. Adamski had a contractual obligation with Pershing to keep the information confidential. He failed in that respect, but the person he spilled the beans to didn't make any trades, so he's in the clear. Shamik didn't have any relationship to Pershing, so what duty was he breaching? A financial blogger, Matt Levine, on Bloomberg, captured the scenario fantastically. He writes, "Neither Adamski nor Shamik traded Herbalife. Neither of them seem to have gotten any tangible benefit out of passing on this information. Only Peixoto made any money. Each of them tipped off a close friend. The only difference between them is that the analyst violated Pershing Square's written confidentiality policy, while Shamik just violated his duty to his roommate. And Shamik is the one who got in trouble. To be clear, the SEC has chosen to enforce not Pershing Square's written confidentiality policies that are designed to protect its proprietary trading strategies, but rather the unwritten duty of roommate confidentiality." Basically, it's like the federal enforcement of some sort of bro code. And what about that third component, that the person passing the information has to have done so for some personal benefit? The SEC just sort of tossed a line into their description of the case, stating that Shamik received a personal benefit by gifting confidential information to his friend Peixoto. Basically, your friends will like you better if you help them make money, is what they're saying. And I mean, it does seem pretty true. Okay, so now we know what happened and who was charged. So what ended up happening in the two cases? Well, Shamik paid to just make everything go away. His lawyers told the SEC that Shamik was willing to pay $47,100, which just happened to be equal to the amount that Peixoto made on the trades, and the SEC said, fine, just don't do it again. Peixoto fought on, though, and he made several technical legal arguments, eventually leading to the SEC dropping the case. The reason the SEC gave was that Adamski and Shamik had both returned to their native Poland and were not going to be willing to return to testify against their friend. And even if they were coerced into returning, their lawyers said, well, our clients are going to plead the fifth. The legal community is pretty sure that this reason is total BS. The SEC, they say, well, they just didn't need to fly anyone to America. They could have just asked for written statements, and they probably could have gotten around the Fifth Amendment as well. What they say happened is that a ruling in a separate case was made in the meantime, dealing with that third component about who can trade on inside information. It said basically that the person receiving the inside information must know about a benefit that the tipper is receiving, and that just being a good buddy doesn't count. As Shamik's lawyer put it, the ruling makes it crystal clear that Shamik did not commit insider trading, and they actually tried to sue and see if they could get some of the money back. What constitutes insider trading in this sort of case is still in flux, with different interpretations arising all the time. Either way, everyone in this case seems to have moved on. According to what I could find on LinkedIn, all three have found their way into what presumably are pretty well-paying positions and probably didn't suffer too bad, despite the fact that if you Google them, you find out about an insider trading case. Even Bill Ackman, after having fought what seemed to be a losing war for a number of years, closed out his short position in 2018. And how about the friendship that got everyone into this mess in the first place? Well, at least we could find in 2014 the New York Times reporting that as for Mr. Adamski and Mr. Shamik, the case has strained their relationship, people close to them say. Even so, they remain friends. How nice, I guess. Thanks for watching, guys.